Glennon Doyle is an Oprah-endorsed New York Times best-selling author many times over. She is the founder and president of Together Rising, which has raised over $25 million for women, families, and children in crisis. She is a co-founder of Share the Mic Now, a campaign resulting in over 2 billion impressions, amplifying Black women and their work. Most importantly, she is a mother, a wife, some would say even a guru, an untamed love warrior, and most recently, a cheetah. I could not be more honored to share space with the uncompromising, the unfiltered, the untamed Glennon Doyle.
Hello, Rebekah. Here we are. Beautiful introduction, especially coming from you.
Oh, thank you. It's such an honor. It is such an honor to have you. And we could not be more pleased to have you be one of the inaugural speakers for Exponent Talk. So thank you.
Thank you for trusting me with this place and these people. I'm truly, truly honored to be here.
Wonderful. So let's go ahead and get started. When I think about your journey, which you have documented with the world, I'm reminded of the Wizard of Oz. A terrible tornado sends Dorothy, who is living in black and white, to the land of Oz, a world that is glowing with color. On the yellow brick road, with the help of several sensitive and unforgettable characters who are in partnership with one another, go on a journey to conquer their individual fears. Dorothy discovers that home isn't necessarily a place, but a feeling within oneself. And that, in fact, she has always had the power to go home. Like Dorothy, you've weathered many storms. You've been presented with incredible obstacles. You've met exceptional people along the way, and together you've lifted one another up in your collective journeys, and you've come out the other side with a knowing. Your journey to self-discovery and self-love has propelled you to fame and has given you this incredible, powerful platform. And you have used your platform to speak up for others in remarkable ways. I'd love to hear your reaction to that comparison and find out if you agree, and if you agree that it's essential for you to fight for yourself before you can truly fight for others.
I guess it was in my case. I mean, first of all, that was so gorgeous. All I want to do now is just sit and think about that for the next week. That was so wonderful. Thank you for that. I think there's so much truth in that analysis of my life. I will tell you that for me personally, I had to do a lot of work before I could show up, just because I was an addict for a very long time. So when I was 10 years old, I became bulimic. And that, because I'd never got it sorted out correctly, it just morphed into every other addiction, right? And so I didn't get sober until I was 25. So for most of my formative years, I was really lost to addiction. And so when you are as sick as I was, there is a level of stabilizing, recovering, right, that you have to do before you're at all able to, with any wisdom or stability, show up for the world. So I did. I mean, I actually found myself on a bathroom floor holding a positive pregnancy test, just shaking from fear. And some part of me just felt like that was my invitation to come back to life, I guess. And so my sister picked me up off the floor of the bathroom and took me to my first recovery meeting, right? So this is when my journey to home, back home after the storm began, right, that day. I don't think I knew then that home was just myself, right? That I had always had everything that I needed, exactly what you just said, that addiction is really about wanting to escape yourself, right? At some point, sensitive souls, because all of us addicts started off as very highly sensitive souls, right? somebody along the way accidentally taught us that our big feelings or our depth or our high sensitivity was too much or weird. And so we started numbing, right? We decided at some point that home is not safe, right? So we had to numb out all of that. And then we ended up in a tornado of partly our own making, I guess. But most of us started with good intentions, right? We were just doing what we thought we needed to do to get by, to survive, to fit in. And so that day, my sister literally picked me up off the bathroom floor and took me to that first recovery meeting. And I will never forget the first time I sat in a circle with those people at that meeting. I mean, my first thought was, oh God, these people are jacked up. I don't belong here, right? And then they started talking and I thought, oh my God, this is where they keep the honest people. Right? Like, this is where people come to tell the truth. And there is an experience that happens when because we're all out in the world, people ask, how are you? I'm fine, I'm great. Marriage is awesome and easy. Parenting, oh, it's nothing. Like work, crushing it. Like just all of these, responses that we are trained to have because we were conditioned to believe that if anything is hard, that means we're failing. Ease, coolness, all of the perfection. This is like what we're sold. What I've learned is actually life, love, work, purpose, justice, all of these missions are often hardest for the people who are doing them right, who are showing up and taking big risks and falling on their asses and trying again and apologizing, like often, absolutely, the hard sometimes means that you're on the right track, right? Because nobody ever told us it would be easy. So yeah, I guess that was the day I started returning home. I mean, we call recovery because we're recovering ourselves.
That's right. Right? That's right.
We got smushed under a big house of addiction and just our feet are sticking out like the Wizard of Oz. And recovery is just like coming back to life, recovering our true self, the self we were before the world told us who to be. Because the truth is, Rebekah, that I have a little girl who I think is a lot like I was as a child, right? She's a highly sensitive soul. I am raising her and I think of her as a highly sensitive soul, as a prophet, right? I mean, every civilization, every culture has people across history who they kind of point out in the tribe. They identify these people early. They're always a little bit eccentric, a little bit different, but they are also considered crucial to the tribe's survival because they are the ones who will see things that other people can't see, who are willing to feel things that other people won't feel, right? These are the shaman, the medicine men and women, the clergy, the poets. It's just in our culture, we are so hell-bent on productivity and efficiency that it's easy for us to call those people broken than to understand that they are actually responding appropriately to a broken world, right? These are the canaries in the coal mine, people who are standing at the bow of the Titanic going, iceberg, iceberg. And everyone else is like, we just want to keep dancing, right? They just slow us down.
Yeah.
So we put them away instead of putting them on a platform and saying, tell us more, you're the prophets, right?
In this culture, that's right. Yes.
So
yes.
Rebekah, I thought of myself my whole life, even after I got sober, even after I became an upstanding citizen and was like vertical and like, my whole family was like, wow, she's humaning effectively. I always had this little shame. I always wonder if we all have this kind of like shame belief that's at the core of us. Usually something that our parents actually accidentally taught us when we were little, or our culture did.
Yeah.
My wife's she was a gay kid raised in a Catholic church. She has a shame belief she's still working out that says like I am an abomination, like I cannot be loved by God, right?
And indoctrinated.
Indoctrination.
Yeah, that's right.
So mine was I'm crazy because from the time I was 10 years old, my whole life was, medications and therapies and recovery centers. And, I was even hospitalized in my senior year of high school. And so, the mantra became crazy. Like, I got to keep humaning and but I need nobody to find out like what's really at the core here. And that makes it really hard to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think for women, especially, we're taught in a million different ways not to trust ourselves. So to have a core belief that you can't trust yourself is woof. But now watching Tish, I realized, oh my God, like not in a million years would I say this child is crazy. And I was just a highly sensitive kid, just like her. I just didn't have the resources, the wisdom, the help that I needed to manage that sensitivity. I didn't understand the gifts that came with sensitivity. So I turned to addiction. But raising a sensitive kid has helped me completely change my root belief about myself, right? And that's why the mantra in Untamed was so important to me. The whole "you're not crazy, you're a goddamn cheetah."
Yes.
That's where all that comes from.
Yes.
And I didn't even know. All I knew when I was writing, because sometimes I just get lost in this other world. I have no idea if anyone's going to be able to come there with me. I have no idea if I get it. I don't know if I even get it. I don't like, but it's so fascinating to me that personal mantra of like, you're not crazy, you're a goddamn cheetah, which by the way, just means trust yourself. That's all that means, right? But I think it has become such a wide mantra for women because women have been so universally gaslit.
Correct.
That we are constantly conditioned to doubt ourselves and, don't be too emotional. Like, don't trust your gut. That's weird. Don't use your imagination. That all of these things that are innate in us, that are our guides, we've been gaslit out of depending upon.
That's right. That's right. That is so powerful in a variety of different ways. And one of the things that sticks out for me is I firmly believe, and there's a wide spectrum of sensitivity, right? That we all are born with.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that infants are born knowing everything.
Mm.
And we, their parents, and the culture around them indoctrinate them to unlearn those things. And whether it's there's nothing to be sad about, or go and hug that weird uncle, or whatever it is, don't trust yourself. You need to trust me, whoever me is, right? The larger world. And I think that for those who are born more sensitive, or I think I'm looking at it as you knew everything from the beginning. You had that knowing when you were born, and you were fighting with the people around you who were actually lying to you, telling you that you didn't know, right? And I think that it's so incredible the way you lay that out and the way that you're looking at it. I also think that a big part of who you are to the world and how you've in your art allowed the rest of us to come along in your journey. I think a big part of it is mothering, from that day on Mother's Day that Amanda picked you up from the bathroom floor and you started your journey, right? All the way forward. It's all about mothering, and not only mothering your own children, but mothering other people's children, mothering yourself, right? Taking care along the way. But I also, at least for myself, I wasn't able to truly understand the depths and the importance of that piece until I had children of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be the very best for them, not only by example, but for them, teaching them. And so I did harder work than I would have done otherwise, you know? And so I think that there are just so many elements of how this comes full circle. And then one other piece that came out in your book, and you talk about this quite a bit, and it comes up quite frequently, is there she is.
Mm.
When you see Abby for the first time, you have a stillness and you say, there she is.
Mm-hmm.
And in preparing for this and really thinking through your journey, when I read your book a second time in preparation for this, that jumped off the page as that is the moment you found yourself too. So there she is has a dual meaning. And I don't know if you intended that.
Rebekah, I gotta tell you that my team and I were just talking about this thing we're gonna do next with Untamed. And I was like, you know what we need to do for this next one is really hammer home the there she is thing, because it's the one thing in the book that I don't feel like I didn't explain it well enough for people to get, but of course you just brought it up. There she is to me. So the moment we're talking about is when I was at an event to launch Love Warrior, which was a memoir about the recovering of my marriage, right? My first marriage, which we had gone through just an extremely painful experience with infidelity, and we're desperately trying to put the family back together for the children. And I considered myself to have a broken marriage to a good man. And that is a really tricky place for women to be, because we're supposed to be grateful for what we have, and other people have it worse, and you can't have it all. And so we did everything you're supposed to do to like earn forgiveness, you know, and just waited for the forgiveness to like fall from the sky on my head for like as a reward for all of my long suffering. This is how it works, right? I actually did think that's how it works. I'm laughing about it now, but I really believed that. I believe I will earn, by doing all the things that I'm supposed to do, I will earn the time where this will stop hurting me, right? That moment will come, and then everything will be fine. So that moment didn't come. Like, I was able to function and have good moments, but I also was pissed, just deeply. Like, pissed isn't the right word. Like, it was rage. It was like a deep river of rage, just constantly running inside of me, which was lovely for everyone. And then I wrote a book about the kind of recovery of that marriage and all of the steps we went through to try. And at the launch of that book, I looked up from a table full of writers and saw a woman standing in the doorway. And Rebekah, I had been practicing listening for that weird voice that you hope will show up and guide your life at some point, right? So you know what the hell to do.
Yes.
I had been practicing kind of trying to hear from that ever since I got sober. Okay. But this was the first time where I had a moment where it was like, bam, here I am. Like that moment where you hear from the voice that's been buried underneath every single ideal, every single expectation people have of you, every single fake version of yourself, and all of it just was like, there she is. I felt like I wasn't meeting Abby. I was reuniting with Abby, that this person was supposed to be in my life forever. But what now I understand is that what I was hearing from was myself. Like the there she is was the announcement of, oh, we're going to do this now. We're done. Like we are done listening to what everybody else tells us will make us happy, will make us successful, will make us liked, will make us safe, will make it Rebekah, when I was deciding whether to follow this thing with Abby or go back to my broken marriage, it was not a love decision. And this is what I don't think I got across in the book enough, or it felt like a matter of life and death to me. It felt like, am I going to honor this self who has risen up and says, this is what we want, this is what we need, this is what, or am I going to abandon myself again, like I have been doing in a million ways my entire life, right? Am I going to abandon myself and honor everybody else's expectations of me? Or am I going to honor myself and abandon everybody else's expectations of me? Right?
Right. Right.
And it feels obvious now, but it did not feel obvious at the time. It felt like it will be, this is a lovely thought, Glennon. This is a lovely spiritual experience you're having. But the rocking of the boat that will happen with your family, with your children, with your career, with your religion, with your, like, I would literally have to just let all of that just burn and like.
Didn't your good friend Oprah forewarn you the day before the announcement?
Well, I will tell you just a quick story about that. So Oprah, who is in every way more regal and wonderful in real life as she is, she's you know, you know this. It's like, it's scary to meet your heroes because you're like, actually, I'd like to just have this vision in my mind. And sometimes when you meet people in your real life, you're like, oh, but you suck. And that's not like what, right? Or they're like mean to like a waiter, or like they just do something where it destroys every. Oprah's like one of those people who's better in real life. Like she just is who she is.
Wow.
So when I was deciding what to do, when I had made the decision that I was going to leave my marriage and be with Abby, honor myself, it was just terrifying to everyone in my career because it was right when Love Warrior was coming out, and Love Warrior was being touted as this epic marriage redemption story, and many, many dozens of human beings' careers for the next several years were based on the success of this book. And it was being said by all of the fancy people who boss me around that nobody would buy a book about a marriage redemption from a woman who's getting divorced, which is a fair point. Hard to argue with that one. But the thing that is helpful to me, and I almost feel bad for everybody who has never gone through recovery, because it makes my life very simple. Because I have one thing, right? So my one thing is not continuing to be successful at work, or like making the best business decision, or being liked and accepted. Like my one thing is integrity, which means that doesn't mean doing the right thing to me. Because what does right mean? Integrity means my inner self and my outer self are integrated.
Yes.
Right? So what I knew, and my sobriety is based on that. So that's what sobriety is to me, right? That's the piece I need, is to not have an inner conflict between my two selves, because that's what screwed me up for 25 years. So I was just like hell-bent, like, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell my people, because I've never promised my community of people that I'll be this way or that way, or that I'll be perfect. All I've said is that I'll be honest, right? So at one point, somebody on the team in New York said, oh, you can do this, you can announce this, but it will be career suicide. And I remember thinking, okay, then I will have to choose that, because the other way would be soul suicide, right?
Yeah.
So I will go ahead and do that. However, the no's were so big, coming from everywhere, that one night I remember thinking, all these people are trying to boss me around, but I know who the real boss of the world is. Oprah. So I called Oprah that night. Now, what you need to know is that Oprah had already chosen Love Warrior as her new book club. So she had more invested in this than anybody, right? She was going to sink or swim with me with that book, right? That year. I said to her, this is what's happening. I told her all the things. And then I said, they don't want me to tell the truth about it. And she thought for a minute, and she said, you know what I've learned is that we always, no matter where we start, we end up at the truth. So why don't we just start there? Just skip all that. Just start with the truth. Go tell the truth. It'll all be fine. So then the next day, Rebekah, I got to call everybody and be like, so Oprah thinks I should tell the truth. And then Rebekah, of course, everybody's like, oh, I too also believe in the truth. Yes, yes, I have been thinking about it. And I agree. That's an excellent But yeah, it was so, I was just the people in those moments who come through for you, because that's a person, you know, in every company, every decision, and there are people who are there with you, not necessarily, she was making a decision for me as a human being, regardless of, because she's also wise enough to know that when we make the right decisions, when we make honest decisions, when we make decisions with integrity in every place, not just in our homes, but in our companies, it always works out better.
Yes.
Just 100% of the time.
Yes.
And of course, it worked out great. All good. All good.
So that was the beginning of the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey of you being so incredibly confident, not only in knowing who you are, but being okay with that in the world and being okay with your community, the larger community, to understand that about you. And if they didn't get it, they didn't get it, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's talk about the connection between getting to that point and getting to the point of lifting others up. Because what we're here to talk about is fighting for gender equality and equity in general, equitable representation, equitable opportunities. So how do you marry the two? How do you fight for yourself and fight for the world around you, for all of the things that you deem important, which is we are all equal, and we're all souls on our own journey at different points in each of our individual journey, and we need to fight for ourselves. So how do you marry those two?
So you know, I think that anything that's true has to be really, really simple. This is what I've learned in my writing career, in my activism career, in my philanthropy career, is that if you're basing your life, you should be basing your relationships, your life, your career on some truth, on something that you believe, right? Because otherwise you're just throwing darts and other people will tell you what you should be. You're just out there like doing whatever people tell you to do, and that never works out well. Okay. So what I know is there's a very basic tenet of every great religion, of every great philosopher who talks at all about humanitarian issues. It's just a super simple tenet that I remember teaching my children when they were 3 and on, which is just, let's love others as we love ourselves. Let's love others as we love ourselves. Now, everyone throws that around, right? Well, what does it really mean? So to me and to my family, what that means is you think about every good thing that you want for yourself and your family, okay? It is okay and good and true and correct to want good things for yourself and your family. So what are those things we want? I mean, my job is to listen to women. The things that women tell me they want. You know, I want a deep breath. I want a minute to freaking rest. Right? I want to take a deep breath without the whole world falling apart. Right? I want enough money and power to stop feeling afraid all the time. Right? I want education and good food and safety for my children. I want to be able to build a life with the love of my life, right? To be married and be loved and seen and valued. I want to live my purpose. I want to find out what that purpose is, and I want to live it, and I want to find my people, right? purpose and my people is what women say to me over and over again in a million different ways.
Yeah.
How do I find my purpose? How do I find my people? So these are all good things, and we should demand them and want them and fight for them for ourselves and our lives. But there's this other little part that's like, then we love others as we love ourselves, which means that to me, that if I'm even pulling my weight down here, if I'm even doing, an ounce of what I was made for, then I'm using my time and my talent and my money to fight for everyone else to have those good things that I want for myself, right? So if I am a person who if I'm a man who wants a certain salary for myself and my family, if I don't want that for the woman who sits next to me, that's not the kind of vibe that I'm living here. Those aren't the kinds of people that I work with or among. So if I'm a white woman who makes a certain salary, gets a certain power in my company, but I don't want that, or I don't fight for that, because wanting isn't enough, right? I don't risk for that for the Black woman at the desk next to me. So I want to marry and have medical benefits and all the good things that we get from partnership in this country, but I don't want it for my LGBT, and I don't fight for it. I don't risk for it for my LGBTQ sisters and brothers. It's nothing to me, right? So to me, the things go together completely. I will tell you that there's sometimes this idea that you have to have all of your shit together and like be a person who's crushing it. I don't know any of those people, but we all have this idea that there's someone somewhere who's crushing it and like knows exactly what they're doing all the time and is, totally emotionally healthy and is, great skin and it just is like.
I think that's Oprah, but
maybe
beyond Oprah.
Okay,
beyond Oprah.
Oprah.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly it's her.
Yeah.
But I think we have this idea that we have to be nailing our individual life before we show up for the collective.
Yes.
And that is just not my experience at all, mostly because now I have thrown myself into this life where I have to constantly be showing up for other people because of my job, because of my work with Together Rising and because of my activism. So I often have to show up on days when I'm just like, and what I find out is that the healing comes in the showing up.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Right?
That's right.
When we show up for other people before we're ready or before we're prepared, because women, we always think we're not ready for things. Like we just have to wait until we're perfect. And then when we show up before we're ready and we listen intently and we just do our part, we find such connection and purpose in doing that then that heals whatever self we're constantly trying to heal.
That's exactly right. So it's a very biblical concept, right? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. However, if you are in a state or one is in a state where they're not loving themselves, they don't even know what that means. They don't know what that looks like. And so if you want love for your neighbor, your brother, your sister in arms, but you don't love yourself, it's actually incredibly confusing and inauthentic. And so I think that I think you're exactly on the money with what you're talking about, but it also explains why some people get it wrong, right? And because they haven't focused first on healing themselves and not perfection, because only Oprah has that, right? But just healing themselves and being aware and having the knowing of who I am and what I need and how I show up in the world. I think that is a prerequisite to actually doing the other stuff well. And when we're on our journey, we need to do all those things. But that also brings me to this really hard topic. But as you say, we can do the hard things.
Do hard things, yes.
We could do hard things. There's such an inextricable link and intersectionality between gender and sexuality and religion and race. And you just can't, in my mind, fight for one without fighting for all of those dimensions. And I have been deeply moved, like so many this year in particular, by the racial reckoning that not only happened here in the United States, but happened globally, happened around the world as we're suffering this global pandemic. So many things are coming down. And I'm committed, and I have taken action to lift up the voices and amplify our brothers and sisters in arms against the historical and current day racial injustices. It's our job, it's our responsibility to mute ourselves, because the fact of the matter is many of those Black and brown voices have been silenced and erased from history, right? So it's our job to pass the mic. And based on your actions and based on your campaign, I know that you feel the same way. But with that said, we don't have a person of color on the line right now. So how do we, you and I, as two white women, talk about fighting for gender equality without talking about fighting for racial equality in a way that is authentic and productive? And quite frankly, so many people avoid it, and it's really scary because it opens the door for criticism. Why should we be talking about these things that we couldn't possibly empathize with? And so I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, so we can know that every time we talk about these things that we will be criticized. And that will not be because the world is mean and wrong and we are right. It'll be because there will be things that we say that are worthy of criticism. Right? That I can promise you, Rebekah. I mean, maybe not you, but whatever the hell I'm about to say, there's stuff in there that will be worthy of criticism. Also, we know that there are worse things than being criticized, like being a coward.
Yes.
Okay? So we will become women who would prefer to say the things, say them imperfectly, be rightfully criticized, apologize, learn, show up, try again, repeat forever. We will decide that that is preferable than being the type of women who just stay quiet forever to avoid any criticism, right? So first of all, we won't say, oh my God, what if I screw up and people get mad at me? We will say, okay, so when I screw up and people get mad at me, this is what I will do next. I will listen hard. I will let it all in. I will let that change me so that the next time I try, I'll do a little bit better, right? I mean, I think that I believe that there are conversations for white women to have in this realm because I think that I hope that we are kind of moving into a different understanding of our place in this country, which is that I don't anymore feel like my job is to show up as an ally, right? Like, because that this idea has been just, obliterated in my head and heart over the last few years as I've been involved in amazing work with, really not even with, just like beneath these ridiculous social justice warriors who in our country are almost always women of color, right? These are the people who have been in the fight and know what they're doing. So I'm kind of the idea that my job is, I'm Glennon, here I am. Like, what can I do to help? I'm so excited. And like, you guys, have you been waiting for me? Like this, which was kind of my consciousness 5 years ago, or, to like, oh, what I think is the truth of this, or a truth of this, is that white women like me, somewhere along the way in this country, we really make a little bit of a deal with the devil. And just like, stay with me on this and hear me out, okay? We can do hard things. I think that somewhere along the line, we look around at our country and our culture and we understand that there is a deal to be made for white women. And that is, we have proximity to the ultimate power in this country, right? Which is white men, white straight men, okay? We, in order to keep that proximity to power, we make a deal and we say, okay, I will accept all of the comfort and benefit that comes from being close to this power. In exchange, here's the deal I will make. I will never ask for any real power, okay? I will stay small and quiet and pleasant and accommodating, and I will never question you directly, and I will never rock your boat. I will accept the things that come to me with that proximity to power, including, well, we have one that's been so widely acknowledged recently, which is I will accept the protection and of the police. Mm-hmm. But I will never look over there and ask what the police are doing in those communities, right? I will walk into my kid's school and demand 9 iPads for every child in the school, but I will never look over there and ask why that school down the street doesn't even have clean drinking water, right? I will over and over again accept the things that come with my proximity here. And for that, I won't ask any questions, right? And that, what that does to a human being over time, because we know it.
That's right.
That's right. We've always known it. We see it. We experience it. We know that other people's experiences in this country are not the same as ours. We know that other people's children don't get the benefits that our children get. We know, but the deal is that we will pretend not to know. And what that does to a human being is that it slowly crushes your humanity. White people, white women like me, we don't need to show up to save Black people. We need to show up to save our own souls, right? Because the consequences of being complicit with white supremacy is that we have lost our humanity, right? And so this is why over, the quote that we'll have to look up who said this because I'm forgetting it right now. It said, if you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you have come because you know that your liberation is tied to mine, then let us begin, right? So that I feel like is a conversation that white people can have, right? Which is like, what price are we paying? White women especially, for our complicity. Because, I remember when The Handmaid's Tale came out and everybody was like, oh, all my friends we're June. We are June. We are going to get out of the patriarchy. We are June. And then finally over time we realized, oh, we're Serena. We were never June. We're Serena. White women are Serena, and the whole world is just wondering when we will finally understand, right, that our proximity to Gilead will not protect us, that they will still cut off our pinkies, that they will never give us, we're just misaligned, right? We're aligned over here. We need to realign ourselves, right? We need to realign ourselves with the people who are resisting, who are fighting for equality, who are rocking the boat, who are challenging status quo, right? Just a little misaligned. So I'm constantly thinking in every situation, like at the grocery store, at a board meeting, in my activism, like, what can I do in this moment to betray white supremacy? What can I do in this moment to take my training and turn on my trainers?
Wow. So your description of the social contract that we white women have signed and signed up for, I think is a perfect way to describe how we can start showing up in a different way.
With
And
humility, right?
right. That's right.
Humility.
Yes. Yes.
The
And
women who have taught me this, let me just tell you real quick, the women who have taught me this over the last year, because Black women have been saying this forever, by the way, right? Brittany Packnett Cunningham and Dr. Yaba Blay and Brittany Cooper and Lovey Ajayi Jones and Bazoma St. John. I mean, those are the women that I did share the mic with, by the way.
yes.
And that was just born out of relationship. One day, Bose, I think I texted Bose and said, "How are you?" It was right, a week after the George Floyd video came out. And she said, "Well, I just feel like I'm using my voice, but I'm just screaming into the wind." And so I said, "Okay, well, why don't you just take my Instagram account? Like, I've got a lot of freaking people there. Just say whatever the hell you want to say on my Instagram account." So she said, "Hold on." She called me back an hour later with Lovey, who's our other really good friend. And she was like, "How about we do that, but with like 150 people?"
Yes. Yes.
And then they said, "We're going to go get the Black women and you go get the white women." And I never want to disappoint Bose and Lovey. So I was like, "Okay, I'll go get the white women." And then I hung up and I was like, "Abby, what does that mean? How do I get the white women?" But we did it.
It was over 2 billion impressions, right?
Yeah. Crazy.
That's just amazing. Our time is almost coming to an end. And the goal of these talks is to translate the power of this dialogue into lasting change. We don't want to just be talking. We want people to take action. But sometimes it's such a big thing to tackle that it's really, really overwhelming. And many of us don't even know where to start. What is one action, however big or small, that you recommend that people that are watching this video right now can do today in order to join us in the search for equity?
Well, I'm really hoping that a lot of us are going to be taking action now, because I feel while COVID has been just country and soul crushing and family crushing, and I know that personally because of my work with Together Rising. All we've done for the last 10 months is read story after story of families losing. I think that there is a blessing in it, which is that I feel like we really as human beings are like these snow globes. I wrote about this in Untamed, where we just keep ourselves shaken up all the time, right? I had this snow globe when I was little. I think my godmother gave it to me, and I liked it, but I hated it because I thought it was so cool the way the snow went. But there was this dragon in the middle of the snow globe that was like red and scaly, and I thought it was so scary. So I would keep it in my room, but I would, as much as possible, I would just keep it shaken up so I didn't have to see the scary dragon. And I swear to you, Rebekah, that I think about that all the time, because I feel like that's the human experience, right? Like we just keep ourselves shaken up constantly with all the things we use, right? Just booze, food, sex, shopping, snark, gossip, busyness, scroll, like whatever it takes to keep ourselves shaken up so we don't see the dragons at the center of our lives, right? In our relationships, in our companies, in our communities, in our nation. But COVID has really been a forced settling of the snow, right? Because all of those things, so many of those things have been taken from us. And I think that there is incredible, it feels like early sobriety to me, right? Where you finally let the snow settle and all your dragons pop up, which is why nobody wants to get still, because the truth is the dragons, and nothing's scarier than facing the truth. But I've seen lately, like I'm telling you, Rebekah, like I have friends now who for the first time are like, all right, maybe 6 glasses of wine a night isn't like exactly my best life. Like maybe, facing like addiction, calling, making that call that they've been avoiding for a decade because they were so scared of doing it, like marriages dealing with their shit for the first time. I mean, it's so easy to just not concentrate on the broken parts of our relationships when we're busy.
That's right.
And now the broken parts of our relationships are sitting next to us on the couch for 6 freaking months, and it's very hard to ignore, right? So, and COVID has brought to the surface so many of the broken parts of our institutions that we're not ignoring anymore, of our corporations that we're not ignoring anymore, of our nation. I mean, we were talking about George Floyd before. Is police brutality new in any way in our country? Not at all. I have to believe that there was something about us being still enough to watch. Everybody was forced to watch that video. We finally acknowledged the dragon that's at the center of this country's snow globe, which is and has always been systematic racism, right? So, so you asked for an action item. What I will say is that what I know about early recovery, which I feel like we are all in right now, is it's very uncomfortable. Like you get sober and everyone around you has promised you, because you've been ruining everyone's lives for a long time. So they promise you that once you get sober, everything's going to be great. And then it's terrifying when you get sober because everything sucks worse than ever, right? Early sobriety is the worst. All you do is remember why you started drinking in the first place. Okay. So that's what we're in right now. We're all looking at our dragons and we're very sad and we're very itchy and we are uncomfortable. And that is the beginning of progress. That is okay. Like, honestly, Rebekah, I want to give you like well, do this and it'll make, but what I really think is that there's no simple answer, because what I would love for people to do is embrace this idea that an 80-year-old woman told me at my 6th AA meeting, okay? So when I finally got the guts to stand up at the meeting and say words, I explained what I just explained to you. I said, my name is Glennon, I'm recovering everything, and I feel like complete crap, and I'm scared to death because I thought that booze was my problem. So I thought that if I quit drinking, I would feel better. But I quit the booze and I don't feel better. I feel awful, which makes me think that the problem was never the booze, that the problem is me. And I don't know how to fix me. And so I'm just wondering if I'm missing some secret of life, because it just feels so much harder for me than it looks like it is for everyone else, right? And then I sat down and said, thank you very much. At the end of the meeting, this woman came and sat next to me. She put her hand on my knee. She was at least 80 years old. Well, it was AA, so she could have been 27, honestly. She said, listen, honey, I want to tell you something that someone told me in early recovery, and that is this. It's not hard. It's not especially hard now because you're doing life wrong. It's especially hard now because you're finally doing it right. Because you are finally feeling all of your feelings. You're not numbing any of them out. And the thing is that all feelings are for feeling, even the hard ones, right? If there's any secret to life, it's that it's often hardest for people who are doing it right.
Yes.
And the thing about being human is that being human isn't about feeling happy. Being human is about feeling everything, right? Yes. So my action item for people would be to stop trying so desperately hard to avoid awkwardness, to avoid confrontation, to avoid rocking the boat, to avoid fear, to avoid, right, in order to maintain a false peace that was never really peace in the first place, to stop being peacekeepers and instead commit ourselves to being peacemakers, right? Which is an active thing, which is when we see something, we say something. When we see racism, we say the thing. We risk rocking the boat. We risk making a conflict on the outside so that we don't constantly live in conflict on the inside, right? So that we don't slowly die inside.
Wow. Glennon Doyle, you are certainly a truth teller. Dorothy Gale at the end, when she finally finds herself and finds her way home, she actually frees all of the inhabitants of Oz over the course of her journey because she has worked so hard for herself. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait to see how you continue to change the world.
Same. Back at you, sister. We will just keep yellow brick roading one next right thing at a time. And we will just trust that that's going to take us all the way home, because we realize there's no freaking Oz behind the curtain.